If we're not getting 10,000 miles per truck, the drivers aren't making money, we're not making money. You know, there's a lot of rumors out there, and I want to address some of those. We move America, and if you don't feel proud about the work that we do, I don't know what would make you more proud.
Hello and welcome to CB Talk, the Combined Transport Blackwell Monthly Podcast. Today is February 21st, 2025, and I'm your host, Nick Card, Vice President of Operations. We've got a great interview coming up with Mike Card, President of the company. We talk about what's happened in 2024, what's coming up for 2025, some news and some rumor mill quashing. But before we get to that, let's go to the news. Our drivers of the month this month: Steve Bauman in Glass and Flatbed, Wynisha Coleman in Blackwell, Jason Boviel in Heavy Haul, and Tim Covey, Employee of the Month in the office. Congratulations, and thank you all for the hard work you put in every single day. February, our safety focus of the month is defensive driving. Make sure that you practice proactive defensive driving habits when you're out over the road. Look for hazards, make sure you maintain safe following distances, manage your blind spots, and always have strategies for preventing accidents. With defensive driving, you can stay safe out there. In the news this month, ATRI, the American Transportation Research Institute, released its 14th list of the most congested freight bottlenecks in the U.S. And yet another year, we have the worst spot is Interstate 95 and State Route 4 interchange, and the George Washington Bridge in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Oregon, of course, always has a member of that list with the Rose Quarter, challenged through Portland, and the list would not be complete without our favorite spots in California, Texas, and other places up and down the Eastern Corridor. Of course, one of the things that I think we all feel about bottlenecks and traffic is it never seems to be getting any better. Well, fortunately, that is not strictly the case. Illinois used to be home to the nation's worst bottleneck. It has significantly improved traffic flow, specifically in the Chicago area. This isn't just because other places have gotten worse. It's because they've actually done the work and the investment to improve traffic and reduce congestion. So hopefully we can see some of that kind of investment happening around the rest of the country. Trump's tariff plans continue to dominate in the news, whether punitive or reciprocal tariffs. EU, Canada, Mexico, China, and other American trade partners have been in a tit-for-tat over different tariff policies. These tariffs do have a potential to impact American freight markets, and it is yet to be seen exactly where these tariffs will land and how those impacts are going to be realized. New research from the federal government shows that even in the face of parking shortages, drivers are slow to adopt new parking apps to help identify parking places and available parking spots along interstates. If you don't have a parking app, I would recommend getting one because those apps are showing actual availability and help with trip planning, but people aren't using them, and so that gives you quite the advantage if you're one of the few drivers out there that's using those apps. And with that, it's time for our interview. Joining me here in the studio today is Mike Card. Welcome back to the podcast, Mike.
Well, it's been a year since I've been here, Nick, and it's an honor to be back here. I love talking about the company, as you know, and I'm interested to hear what kind of questions people have out there for us today.
Absolutely. Well, your first episode, which granted that was our debut episode of the podcast, it still holds the record for the most views and the most engagement. So I'm excited to see if we get to top that this time, add another laurel to the crown, as they say. But so let's go ahead and jump in. I mean, is there anything you want to start with, or do you want me to just jump right into the questions?
Well, when you say views, I don't think this is on camera, so are they really viewing it, Nick?
Listening to it. I don't know. What do we call views? Listens?
Listens,
okay. So we'll see if we get some more listens.
All
right. Big question. Go ahead and start with, looking back over the last year, I know there have been a number of struggles. Freight market has been really tough for us. What is it as we look ahead to 2025? Are we seeing optimism? Is there growth? I know we got some new numbers from ATA that are forecasting 1.6% freight market growth, which isn't very much at all considering sort of general economic growth. What do you think that looks like for combined transport as we look ahead to the rest of the year?
Yeah, well, it has been a tough year, Nick. 2009 I thought was a bad year, but 2024 is the worst year on the history of the company. And what makes it so much more difficult, I think, is 23 was not a good year and 22 really wasn't a good year. So coming out of COVID, the whole industry has been suffering from overcapacity and high cost. And that's the whole thing. Freight rates have come down, but our costs of operations certainly haven't dropped. So last year in 2024, that was the big challenge, low freight rates and high cost. Now, you mentioned 2025. What kind of optimism is there in 2025? I think there's a lot of optimism. And I just want to give you a couple of numbers that I've seen in just the last couple of months. For example, at Blackwell, our revenue per mile since November is up 23 cents a mile, 13 cents a mile overall from last year. So January showed real growth in revenue per mile. I think we can attribute higher revenue per mile to a couple of things. One is maybe more discipline about how we run the trucks, how we run the drivers. And it's also because I think customers are seeing that when we have carriers like Blackwell and Combined Transport, we are the best of the best, and they need us and they want us and they don't want to lose our trucks or our drivers. And what I've been telling a lot of the customers lately is we are tightening the ship. We are getting rid of excess equipment. We are pushing to have only the best drivers. And if you want to use us, if you want to use Combined Transport, or if you want to use Blackwell Consolidation, you're going to have to pay the right rate. And so that message is actually resonating with some of our customers. And so we're going to have to continue that. So on the revenue side, I see some real positive things coming out of Blackwell. Glass is still strong as far as our dedicated fleets are going. I see some growth there. And I think heavy haul is starting to see the same results that Blackwell is. It's been slow, it's been difficult, but we're starting to see customers calling us, reaching out to us, wanting to lock in our trucks, and they're paying a little bit more. Is it enough? No. We need another 10, 15, 20 cents a mile to get back to break even. So we're still struggling on that account. But the second thing I want to talk about is our cost. I mentioned that we have persistently high expenses. And so what we're doing in the corporate office is we're trying to find ways to cut costs. And we want to retain all of our drivers. We want to retain all of our office workers. But we have found a couple of places where we think we can cut staff surgically, if I could use that term. We don't want to lose anybody, but we've managed to cut 4 or 5 positions out of our corporate overhead we think won't hurt our operations. And we're continuing to look at whatever place we can to save money, but we're operating with a pretty thin staff as it is, so I don't see us being able to cut much more staff. For now, we think that that's probably all we're going to be doing. But we're actually looking at every line item. And so the drivers that are listening to this, I want you guys to think about where you're fueling, for example. You have a lot of expenses in control of your hands. Use the fuel book. Don't fuel in California, like I say, over my dead body. But if you have to, buy the minimum amount that you need to. But we've got to save money on fuel. I'm questioning every maintenance cost that we have out there. We're going after more warranty. We're going after more policy. We're trying to get, we're really watching the drivers on out-of-route miles. We don't want to charge them back, but we can't afford to run 10% out-of-route miles. It kills us. So our focus is on reducing costs while we're trying to also improve revenues. Sorry to have a long answer there, Nick, but
Well, no, I mean, it's a pressing issue. I mean, I know we're seeing it throughout the industry. I have a number of friends that work in other companies around the country, and everyone is going through, focus, surgical, focus on revenues, on costs, on line items, shrinking fleet sizes, all of that kind of stuff. And it's created a lot of pressure in the industry because I think you're exactly right. The oversupply means something has to give, and that means, trucks have to come off the road in order for things to sort of right size again.
right. So let's talk about trucks for a minute. We have been pretty disciplined on a 4-year trade cycle. We don't want our drivers to have trucks that break down over the road. That costs us a ton of money. And what we've had to do because of 2024 is we're trying to stretch that out to a 5-year trade cycle. And so our trucks are probably going to start running up to 600,000 miles before we look to trade them in. We probably will start looking at buying new equipment towards the second half of this year, but we have not placed an order. In fact, the Class 8 truck market is so slow, 13% down in January, for example. It's so slow, we could probably buy a truck in 90 days if we put an order in today. Would you say, Nick?
I think it's even faster than that.
And
now.
maybe so. So we're not going to place an order until after June, July. We want to see how some of the changes we've made reduce costs and how the revenue increases have happened. But if we think, we can balance the revenue expense equation, I wouldn't be surprised if we put a fairly large order for new Class 8 trucks later this year, first part of next year.
As we think about other kinds of equipment and assets in the company, we have a lot of different kinds of specialized divisions, a lot of different kinds of specialized trailers. Do we see opportunity for growth in that, or are we looking to take on new kinds of markets and expand into new areas?
Well, we're always open for new marketing ideas, new shippers, new styles of equipment. I've always told everybody, if we could get a dedicated operation, I'll buy tankers. Dedicated is one place where we are successful. We're making money with our dedicated refrigerated for the dairy fleet, the glass fleet. We're making money on dedicated. So those kind of things we need to grow. We need to grow that more. It's the over the road that we're struggling with. So yeah, we're not going to take on a new type of trailer or operation as an over the road fleet. It's just too expensive. What we really want to do is tighten up our equipment. We want to get rid of some of our used equipment that is not being productive. Having a bunch of used equipment over the yard is not a good use of money. But I know we've got in heavy haul, for example, we've got a bunch of new project jobs coming up. That is usually really good for our equipment, really good for brokerage, a good money maker. And we are going back to our customers and asking for rate increases. So, going for a new line of business, probably not this year. I think our focus is going to try to eliminate the inefficiencies every place we can. There's a saying, Nick, that people have told me, and it might be a little cold-hearted, but it goes, "Don't waste a good recession," which means it's a good time to cut costs during a recession and tighten up the ship. And I think we've done that in the last couple of weeks, throughout most of last year. I'd still like to tighten up some costs that I think are inefficient, and we're going to continue to look at ways to do things better, as always.
When you say look at things, do things better, what are areas that sort of come top of mind for you in terms of thinking ahead as we get more efficient, as we focus on some of these areas that we might see from a driver perspective out over the road or in the office? Is that new technology investment? Is that change process? What does that kind of efficiency look like to you?
Well, on a more holistic scale, One of the efficiencies we need to really improve on is the amount of miles per truck we get per month. It's an important key performance indicator for us, as you know. If we're not getting 10,000 miles per truck, the drivers aren't making money, we're not making money. And I think with the new Motive, Motive's been almost in place now for almost 10 months, really fully implemented for the last 6 months or so, 8 months. And I think everyone's really learning how to use it efficiently. Histories, hours of service. I've been working in the Blackwell fleet recently quite a bit, and man, the fleet managers there, they know their hours of service very well. And Motive has really helped us. So we want to use that efficiency to maximize our drivers' hours of service, maximize the miles. That's a key thing that we can do to help our drivers and to help our company make money. So that's one point that I'm really focused on this year, Nick.
Absolutely. Think about sort of general market trends. I know there's been a lot of disruption in the commercial construction market due to COVID and work from home and that sort of change in how office space is being used. On the combined side, in the flatbed and heavy haul, we're very sensitive to commercial construction. Are you seeing good indicators that that market's going to come back, or is there strength under the commercial construction side that we'll see additional loads and freight move our way?
Well, when you look at a place like Southern California with all the fires, you automatically think, wow, there's going to be a ton of new construction going down there. And there will be. But with FEMA and the delays of getting those houses rebuilt, it may be a year or two before we see that. However, what I'm more confident on is the infrastructure bills that were passed late in the Biden administration. And I really think some of that is going to be, that money's going to be hitting the roads, use it as a pun, but I think we're going to see a lot more equipment for heavy haul. We got a bunch of new lanes for Caterpillar in 2025, which is going to help them. We talked about the project moves, but there's new mines going in. The Trump administration, I think, is going to be very encouraging on energy production, whether it's oil or minerals. So I have hopes that you're going to see some people really developing some larger projects. The apartments and houses, I see that as being slow still, which is unfortunate for our flatbed division. But there again, we got new contracts with Owens Corning, Home Depot. Those kind of people will keep us busy, and hopefully we can continue to work on our pricing. I know I'm doing a lot of RFPs, which are requests for pricing proposals from the Blackwell customers. And every single one of them are 5 to 10% increase in prices. So I think 25, you're going to see higher revenue for us. And as long as we can keep our trucks running efficiently, keep the maintenance costs and the tire costs under control, and use the technology we have to make it more efficient, I have high hopes that 2025 is going to be, let's say, a break-even year for us after having a couple of years in a row where we've lost money. So, there's a lot of rumors out there, and I'm going to address some of those. We laid off 3 people last Friday. I hated to do it. Good people. It was just some redundancies. We've shrunk the fleet, and our total revenue is lower because of that. And we didn't need those people, and unfortunately had to lay them off. It's a small change on our overall fleet. I know it's a big change for those people, and I feel bad for them, but that's probably the only type of layoff we're looking at for a long time. And we're doing things that are going to keep combined transport strong. We've been around for 42 years, and I think we're going to be around for another 42 years. But we got to do what's right, and some of the decisions we're making are hard, but we're doing the right decisions.
44 years? Right, 1980?
Oh,
the
yeah,
company started?
44 years. 45 years this year.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big one, Nick.
Yeah, 45 years, wow. So something you brought up was the policies of the Trump administration and some of the things that we're seeing in energy and minerals that could be really good for us. We also have the potential threats from the tariffs and how that could impact international trade, which I know we're in and out of the ports a lot. Are you concerned about Trump's policies towards sort of economic development, how that's going to impact us, or do we think this is going to be a positive thing? What are the things to keep an eye on as we move forward?
I think the Trump administration's tariff policies are a challenge for business. They're a challenge for inflation, but it doesn't affect combined transport very much or black oil. And the reason I say this, if you look at import container business, container freight, even break bulk, it's less than 5% of the overall transportation market. And for us, we do very little as a percentage of our overall business out of the ports. We don't do containers. We don't haul containers or chassis. We do some break bulk for Caterpillar and some of the bigger manufacturers and some project moves. But we don't see that as affecting the amount of loads coming in or our revenue per mile. And I don't think it affects the internal freight market as much as everybody always talks about the number of ships off Long Beach. And that's the biggest transportation port in the world. Yeah, but for us, that's not what we do, right? So I don't see those kind of tariff policies, whether they're reciprocal tariffs or punitive tariffs. I don't see that's going to be affecting combined transport and black oil very much. It may raise our costs on certain parts, certain expenses because of inflationary effects of tariffs. That doesn't help us. But overall, I see that kind of a policy not affecting us very much over the next 4 years. I think what's better for us is, I talked about it a little bit, is his energy policies. He's going to encourage energy development, energy drilling. We're going to see stuff. There's a mine in Arizona that's going to be started up that you would never have seen with the Biden administration. He's speeding up environmental impact statements for these big projects. So I think businesses are going to want to invest in America, and I think those investments are going to help us get more freight. Maybe not right away, but I do see that some of Trump's policies will help us more than hurt us.
Excellent. That's a good thing, because I know those tariffs, there's a lot of talk about how much the tariffs are going to impact this or that, and sometimes I feel like the talking heads in the media are more speculators than actual experts on anything that they're talking about. Thinking back to our drivers, what can they, how can they be a part of this as we go forward into 25? What are the things you'd mentioned, fueling and tires and some of these other things? How can a driver be a more proactive part of helping us reduce expenses and tightening up that ship, being more efficient?
Yeah, I think there's two places that all of our drivers need to think about doing as good a job as they can. I know some drivers are great at this, some need some help, but there's 2 points that I want to highlight on how drivers can help us. Number one, trip planning. You need to know where you're going to be each night. Now, things change. We've had some horrible weather, and of course that's going to change. Parking's a challenge. Understand that. It's not easy. But if you don't, like I always tell the family, you got to have a plan to change your plans. So let's have a plan. Let's do a good job trip planning. And the second thing I want to talk to drivers about is inspections. If you're not inspecting your equipment, if you don't know how to use your equipment, if your equipment gets broke down over the road, we both lose. I talk about this all the time. Inspecting your tires, inspecting air leaks, inspecting your airline so there's no chafing, inspecting so you know what to expect and how to use your truck. That's critical. And going back, I forgot to say this, Nick, but on trip planning, where are you going to fuel? Have you checked your fuel book? Are you buying the cheapest fuel? These are the kind of things that help reduce our costs, that help us pay our drivers more. So the drivers are a big part of this. Trip planning, fueling, route, inspection, tires, refrigerated units, APUs on heavy hauls, pony motors. Inspect your equipment so it doesn't break down. And when you are planning your time off or your 34-hour restart, check to make sure your truck or your trailer has your DOTs up to date. Check to make sure your PMs are taken care of during your 34-hour or your days off. That's ways to help us too. It's every minute matters out there, and that's how we make money, is because you guys, which have the toughest job, are doing your trip planning correctly and doing your inspections correctly.
If I can take a step back and ask you a more personal question, I think this is a really interesting question that came through, is, you've been involved in trucking most of your adult life. It's second generation family business. What keeps you motivated and passionate about this industry? What keeps you going every day? And what brought you in this morning?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think about that a lot. I think everyone thinks about it as they get to be my age. I turned 65 last year. I'll be 66 next month. People say, "Well, when are you retiring? When are you leaving? When there's a concern if you leave. What's going to happen, right?" Well, first of all, I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. I love what I do. I would like to maybe work a few less hours. And I think we have a great management team here, and that I have complete faith in, that they're going to be able to do as good a job or better than I do. But no, I don't plan on leaving anytime soon, Nick, because I love trucking. I love what we do. I love to see loads coming in. Love to see drivers getting them delivered on time. And, we move America. And if you don't feel proud about the work that we do, I don't know what would make you more proud. But I am proud of the work we do. I'm proud of Combined Transport. I'm proud of Blackwell Consolidation. We are a premier trucking company, one of the best, if not the best, in the United States for what we do. I don't see anybody doing it better than us. And so I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of the work we do for our customers. And I'm not sure I love the smell of diesel smoke, but I sure love trucking.
Well, I appreciate having you here today. It's been great getting a chance to talk about anything. Before we wrap up, is there anything else that you want to say? Is there something that I should have asked you?
No, I think we've covered a lot of great ground, Nick. It's good to be able to have a conversation like this with you and with the employees and the drivers. I wish I could do it more. Maybe we shouldn't wait for a year. But there's so many other people that I love to hear from, and they want to talk to the drivers as well. But I just want to reiterate to everybody, we're going strong. We're getting better. We're not there yet. We need everybody to pull in the same direction. But I'm confident if we all do that, we're going to have a great 2025.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for the interview. It's good to get some background on the challenges that we face, as well as give us some context for what we're looking at going into 2025. Hopefully we can make 2025 that good break-even year that we're hoping for. Our next episode will be out on March 21st. Our guest will be Jennifer Ford, our HR manager. We'll see if we can have an interesting conversation about insurance. I know that's kind of a boring topic, but a critical one for a lot of people. So tune in for that. If you have any questions for Jennifer, please send them to us via Facebook or email them to us at cbtalk@combinedtransport.com. As always, we appreciate your participation. It is your engagement that makes this podcast work. A special note, this is our 1-year anniversary. Thank you all for tuning in and being a part of this, for sending in those questions, for making this successful. This was a really interesting experiment to replace Roundtable, and I'm definitely enjoying this. Our guests are enjoying this. Drivers are enjoying this. So please spread the word. Continue to grow. We don't have a like or subscribe button, but if I was on YouTube, I'd tell you to smash those like and subscribe buttons because it does help us increase engagement. So get the word out there. Thank you for your time. Thank you for listening, and thanks for being part of the Combined Transport team.